So I figured Brian's not here. I'm going to make it a GM spin today. So I'm taking a look at the trade deadline just a week away from today, 6 o'clock Eastern time next Tuesday. I put together my list of the top 10 trade candidates. Take a look at who I have. Now, I left some people off of this, and everybody's lists are going to be a little bit different. But obviously, Shohei Otani at the top of that list. Dylan Cease, I think, a guy with some controllability from the Chicago White Sox. Blake Snell throwing the ball as well as anybody out there now. And look, the Padres are, six and a half games out of the wild card race. Josh Hader could be available. Snell available. Marcus Stroman for the Cubs. He's got an opt-out after the season. Jordan Montgomery, the Cardinals seem to be out of it. And obviously the White Sox with the pitchers, Lucas Giolito as well. David Robertson for the Mets, Cody Bellinger, and Tim Anderson. A lot of White Sox on there that certainly could be a factor in all of this. But I take a look at the list. I didn't include, Ron, guys like Verlander and Scherzer because I'm not convinced the Mets necessarily, even if they think their sellers, are going to sell those guys.
Yeah, especially in the market, right? And with guys that are very complicated kind of contracts, right? Making a lot of money, no trade clauses, all of those. But I think that the guy I would love to start with first is I would love to start with Bellinger. Over the winter, I think many of us thought that he could be the comeback player of the year. Why? Because I just thought he needed someone else's voice to kind of be in his head. The talent was always there. Boy, he's having a July, right? 7 home runs, 22 RBIs in July, and these are the teams that would fit nicely.
Well, you think about this, right? In order to make a trade, you've got to find the team that is the right fit, that needs this player. And so those are some of the teams, Hannah, that need some offense.
Yeah.
Any of those seem to be the right fit for you for Cody Bellinger?
First of all, he's not just having a nice July. He's having a really nice year. He's slashing 319, 369, 549 on the year. And he's young. He's only 28. He's played in a lot of postseason games. So he's a really attractive candidate for contenders. You had, I think, the Yankees and the Giants on there both as teams that could use outfield production offensively. But I like the Yankees because they could also use the defense. They're 18th in outs above average in the outfield, according to StatCast. But the Phillies are 29th in outs above average, according to StatCast. So they could definitely use that outfield defensive help. Of course, that's been the issue. That's what everyone has said about the Phillies the past 2 years. Oh, they got too many DHs. They don't have enough sort of defensive ability. And now they've got Harper, who can't play the outfield. They keep him at first. He's looked great. He looked incredible at first. He made that incredible play. I'm sure they didn't necessarily want him flipping over the railing in the first day that they had him playing first base so as to protect his arm. But if they can keep Harper at first, and they could go after Bellinger for both the offense and the defense in the outfield.
Well, Bellinger does give some versatility as well. Can play some first base and some outfield. A 145 OPS plus, the highest since his MVP season. So it does look like he's having the bounce back year. The Guardians were one of these teams on the list that has not gotten a lot of outfield production. You're familiar with what's going on there.
Well,
fix him. Is he a fit?
When are the Guardians not on that particular list? It's been a pretty long-running theme. Yeah, he could help a tremendous amount. I don't know if I see them going the rental route like that, but I'm with Hannah on the Phillies. They might prefer to go right-handed, if they're doing anything in their lineup, but he would definitely help them defensively, and the Harper dynamic kind of changes everything there. Just to be a little cold water guy real quick, hard hit percentage is actually down this year for Cody Bellinger, which is strange. His BABIP is really high, so I think there's been a little bit of that for help, but he has lowered his strikeout rate. So that's
some good fortune there for him. So we'll see where that ends up going. All right, so back to my list. I had Jordan Montgomery, St. Louis Cardinals pitcher, at number 6. John Mozeliak, their president of baseball operations, has said the Cardinals will be trading players, and they're going to move some guys. Montgomery, a free agent at the end of the season. Here are the worst performing starting pitching groups among the playoff contenders. So you take a look at that. The Reds have given up, the 5th most runs this year in baseball, yet they're playing well and competing in the Central. The Red Sox, some struggles, but they're playing some pretty good. They've just been piecing together their rotation, but getting guys back healthy. The D-backs, Dodgers, and Angels. Ronnie, Montgomery, a guy, Yankee, traded last year at the deadline with the Cardinals in the Bader deal, but a solid performer. Who does he fit?
Well, I think the D-backs are a nice place for him to go. Why? The D-backs have Zach Gallen, who's been so good all season long, but they also have a lot of young pitchers. So you start to think to yourself, okay, where are we going to get those innings when they're going to be the most important at the end of August and in September? And if you look at the year Montgomery's having this year, 16 of his 20 starts, he's given up 3 earned runs or less. The consistency that he lacked, maybe, in a Yankee uniform has come full circle with the Cardinals. He's been their most consistent starter, and he's a guy that you can add, and not for a lot of pieces.
Well, one of the things to consider, too, for the Cardinals is they have a lot of outfielders, too. So you could have a pairing of a deal with a pitcher and an outfielder potentially where maybe somebody could make a move in that. Now, you look at a guy like Jordan Montgomery, command and control, not an overpowering sort of a guy. Do you worry about his stuff in the postseason where power tends to play a little bit better?
That was going to be my concern because, again, you go to the adjusted expected stats, and his expected ERA is over 4 because he's not a guy who's going to overpower people. And so you got to have him in the right ballpark first and foremost. I do think there's a lot of teams he could help. I think that it's kind of funny when you look at the teams that kind of should be all in at this deadline: starting pitching. I mean, it's a need in so many places because there's been so many injuries, and so any team on that list could use them. But I will say that would be the nagging concern is in a postseason environment, keeping the ball in the ballpark, that sort of thing.
Hannah, we look at the teams that need the pitching the most, but there are teams that aren't on the worst 5. The Orioles.
Yeah.
They need a starting pitcher.
They need a starting pitcher.
But they're not among the worst out there. But I think when it comes to starting pitching, there's going to be a huge demand.
Well, right, yes. Everybody needs, there's really a curious paradox constantly in baseball. The pitching is too good, and yet there is somehow never enough pitching. How is that the case? But yeah, I like Montgomery to the Orioles. It's a little bit more pitcher-friendly ballparks. They're not giving up the home runs. And they could use a lefty. John Means on the IL. He's supposed to be back in September, but are you really back in September if you're coming back from Tommy John surgery? And they're certainly making a postseason push.
Well, it's interesting, too, with left-handed pitcher in Baltimore, with the right field wall back, with all the right-handed hitters, right? The ball's not traveling out of the ballpark there, so it could be an important factor to take a look at. All right, back to my list. At number 1, of course, Shohei Otani. Obviously, the biggest story of the whole deadline. The Angels are 4.5 games out of the wild card. Let's take a look at some of the potential fits for Otani. That means teams that have the worst-performing DH groups and starting pitchers, because the reality is he's going to be the best hitter and best pitcher available here at the deadline. So the Cincinnati Reds, look, the question is, he's complicated, right, Otani? Because what is it going to take to get him? The money factor is certainly not insignificant because a third of the season you're going to be paying him $10 million. And then do you have the prospect pool to make a deal on all of this? But certainly the Reds in the mix here. They're rebuilding. You wonder if a rebuilding team's going to go down that road with it. And so for Otani, Ronnie, what do you think about the deal itself? Obviously, it's going to be a mega deal, maybe the biggest deal we've ever seen for a rental player because you're getting the best pitcher and best hitter overall. Everybody could use him, but who can afford him?
Not only use him, but how do you use him? I mean, that's important. How do you afford him? I think personally that he's not going anywhere just because of the complexity of trying to put him in the right place. Also, you mentioned 4.5 out of the wild card. I mean, if you don't push now, when will you push as an organization? Should they trade him? 100%. Because they're at a stage where I feel like they're not going to be able to re-sign him. And there are so many teams out there that you think would be a great fit for Otani. But I do find the complexity of the greatness of his two-way playing ability just a hurdle that's too high.
Yeah. What do you think, Otani? Where do you suspect? Will he get moved? And who's able to pony up the price for it?
He's not getting moved, but this is fun. So let's just go with it.
You don't think so?
I don't think Artie Moreno is going to trade him. But if he's traded, the Baltimore Orioles, that should be the team. They have all the prospect capital in the world. They have all the financial flexibility in the world. And you're not going to sign Shohei Otani to the Baltimore Orioles, but this is your moment. They have proven themselves an elite team. He has both things they need. You saw it on that list. And so this would be a fun moment to insert yourself onto Shohei Otani's Hall of Fame plaque as having had a Baltimore Orioles experience.
So here's the thing. You said it yourself. The Orioles are not going to sign him. And it is such a complicated player, not just in terms of the contract and sort of what is fair to get in return, but in terms of sort of implementing him, onboarding him to your team. And is it worth it if you're not going to be in the Shohei Otani sweepstakes this offseason? I mean, I think the team, right again, it's not going to happen, but it's fun. I think only sort of teams that are motivated to take advantage of that exclusive negotiating window should really be overpaying for Otani, which you're going to have to do to get Otani. I like the Giants for him for that reason. Like, they have tried time and time again to sign a superstar, a franchise player, a pillar they can build around, and they could use that little head start on the negotiation if they're really serious about getting him this offseason.
Yeah, you got Scott Boras. You're not going to get a 72-hour window to negotiate a deal. He's going to go to free agency. He doesn't want to make a deal now because he wants to play everybody against each other. And so I think, though, it's baseball malpractice malpractice to not trade Shohei Otani. It's malpractice for them not to move him. They have to. It's the best thing for the organization. Make the deal, and it would be fun for all of us to talk about it.